Blankets became important in my work when I started a project wanting to build a column of folded and stacked blankets, and I was interested in how blankets are these objects that we take for granted and have these sort of extraordinary histories of use. I was also really interested in how this form was ladder-like and kind of created a bridge between sky and ground. And as a Seneca person, our creation story is about Sky Woman, and Sky Woman lives in the sky, and she's pushed through this hole, or falls through this hole. And as she's falling, she is assisted by a motley crew of animals who are our first teachers, and they help her survival on what we now refer to as Turtle Island. I grew up in the Pacific Northwest, so I definitely was interested in the relationship between totem poles and this kind of columnar form. And one thing that I think is interesting is in the at the Northwest coast, totem poles are often like it's a house post, and if your clan animal is represented in that post, it means that this is kind of this welcoming place to you and your families and relatives. Blankets, I think, are also these sort of welcoming objects. We're received in blankets. In a way, we even kind of leave this world in a blanket. And so just that idea that the blankets could kind of come together to welcome people into a space was interesting to me. My process in collecting blankets sort of evolved over time. When I first started, I was getting the blankets from thrift stores, and I had friends come over and they would say, "Oh, I used to have this blanket like that," or my grandmother had a blanket like that, and they would launch into story. And so it struck me very early on in my process that blankets were markers for memory and story, and I became more and more interested in that, and eventually started thinking about how I could collaborate with communities directly and have blanket stories that were actually attached to specific blankets, and or like a blanket maybe as a placeholder for a story that somebody wanted to share about a blanket. The blankets behind me were collected in collaboration with the Denver Art Museum, and they came from people in the community, but I also think that they came from points beyond Denver and points beyond Colorado as well. Well, the next part is sort of just looking at the blankets and folding them and handling them, and I am really interested in bits that have been, eaten by moths, or bits that have been mended, and the satin bindings that oftentimes are, very thin. And I guess for me, what I like so much about handling the blankets and folding them and kind of getting to know them is that I start to learn more about their stories and histories, and even their tags kind of reveal, if they even have a tag anymore, then like sometimes their tags that have been woven on reveal something about that history. Sometimes there's even name tags that have been sewn onto blankets as well, and all of those elements speak to me. Getting stuck is part of the process of being an artist. I like to think that maybe getting stuck allows you to make better work than stay with what you know. And in this particular case, I think one of the things that I was sort of getting stuck with was like, what's the title going to be? Because I've known about this project for a while, and I tend to do a lot of research and learn more about a place, learn about the indigenous community in a place, learn more about the institution's history, and for some reason it was taking a lot of time for those answers to come. And one of the things that's happened, though, with working with the blankets at the museum and unfolding them and touching them and like interacting with them, the title is actually starting to come to me. But I guess my advice in getting stuck is that oftentimes it really is part of the process, and it's hard to embrace it for that, but I think that oftentimes like maybe better solutions come out of those sort of obstacles. I hope it might make people think about the storied objects that they have in their possession, maybe their own blanket stories. And one of the things, though, that I think is important is how our stories connect us. And so I hope that people can kind of find connections in the stories that we share with one another.